host Tazeen, and this week we have a very, very special episode entitled Art, Identity, and Spirituality. And the title and the topic was decided by this wonderful person, Kamau Ayubbi. So maybe you could tell everyone who you are, a little bit about yourself.
Okay, my name's Kamau Ayubbi, born in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, you were born in LA? I thought you were from Oakland. Oh, that changes things. that changes things a little bit.
LA. Okay, so yeah, LA.
Okay.
Which that has its own story. But I went to high school. Up till high school, I was in LA.
You were in LA for that long?
Yeah.
Wow, I thought you were Oakland.
All the judgments coming.
I'm not judging. I'm just saying.
I survived.
Just surprised.
Yes. So I went to Fairfax High School when I was in art.
This is Hamida, I think. Hi, Hamida.
I did art in high school, so like visual art.
Oh, okay.
And my mother is a performing artist.
Yeah.
You've met her, and we've done some sessions with her. So
his mom, let me tell you. I mean, I like you, but I really like your mom.
That's normal. Yeah, people love my mom much more than they love me.
I mean, I'm not saying we don't love you, but I'm just saying that the person who raised you and took care of you, she's very, very special.
She is. She's very special. So I grew up in a cultural arts scene in LA.
Yeah.
Like LA is known for the Hollywood and stuff like that, and the kind of like the gloss. But there's some deep like people in LA, and I grew up in a social, cultural environment of art and cultural art.
Yeah.
So like my mother was part of this Yellow Brotherhood / Yellow Soul movement. The coming out of the, like as Tupac's brother said, we're children of the upside down 60s. No, they're children of the 90s, right? They're from the 60s. So coming out of that, my mom kind of wrote music for the social struggles at that time, and people of Asian descent, African descent, Latino descent finding their identity in the midst of the American scene. And so even though my mom kind of came through Hollywood, she ended up getting into this whole exploration of her identity as an Asian American through her art. But she had to kind of go through Hollywood and things like to find it. So anyway, I grew up in that environment. She's Japanese, yeah. So I grew up on a lot of rehearsals. She used to do her rehearsals in a Buddhist temple in South Central Los Angeles. Wow. So I spent my time running around the social hall, playing with taiko drums, taking naps during practice, and watching her get local people or people throughout the LA area to get involved with art production. People who weren't dancers doing dance performances through her education and training. So that was like my exposure. So she always kind of pushed art. She's like, I like art was just there. I also grew up a lot in the Crenshaw district, and in Crenshaw there is this black district, this district of artists basically. Yeah. And there's a gallery called Brockman Gallery, and I kind of grew up around there and around a lot of the poets and musicians of that time in LA. So LA's actually has this Hollywood reputation, but it has this like
but there's
depth.
Something.
Yeah, there's depth. There's a lot of depth.
So you came up around just very creative and innovative people. Your mom and like community members in that space.
Absolutely.
Welcome everyone who's on. Farhana's on. Hi Farhana. Oh look, Malika's on. Salam everyone. Alaikum salam. And Aram.
So
thank you guys for being here.
Yeah. So then I went to the Bay Area because my mom would send me up to San Francisco as a teenager to work in like youth programs in San Francisco. So I built this relationship as a young person with San Francisco Bay Area, and ended up going to San Francisco State. It's the only school I applied to. I just went with the flow.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I've always kind of just gone with the flow. My mom taught me to just kind of follow I feel like she taught me to just follow my spirit.
Yeah.
So
I mean, your personality is very much like that.
Right on.
Just easygoing and calm.
My dad is from New York, and he came up in the 50s and 60s in the Nation of Islam. And my in the midst of the whole movement piece of civil and human rights and like kind of post Malcolm X, that's when my parents met in New York and fell in love, and boom, I was born in 1973. Wow. My dad died in 74, early 74. But he became Sunni. He was a companion of Malcolm X. Wow. So my grandmother knew Malcolm X. She used to critique his talks.
Wow.
You should consider speaking this way.
No way.
Yeah. So my aunt and a lot of my family came through the nation with Malcolm, Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, and then when he became Sunni, then my dad also followed along in that pathway. So
you must have grown up hearing all of these really amazing stories of strong people during the 50s and the 60s.
Yes. Exposed to them, conversations about, like art, identity, movement people, so I'm definitely a child of the movement. But still, like, I don't know, I don't feel like I ever really fit into anyone's stereotype, and that because being Japanese and African American, it just put me in this in the United States, just the whole identity issue everyone deals with.
Yeah.
But when you're multi-ethnic, then it becomes real interesting.
How did you, as a young person, sort of deal with those two identities and navigating both of those communities?
Yeah, it varied. I mean, my mother was very intentional about exposing me to kind of like the schools that I went to. I went to this community school, very diverse schools, where we would learn about different cultures and so forth. But it was always, on the playground, an interesting thing. Like when my mom would come pick me up, is that your mom? Because you can't tell, obviously, that I'm Japanese. So is that really your mom? So, and then being in the Japanese Buddhist community, there's definitely like this kind of, I didn't fit, like as a Japanese kid.
Yeah.
And then among the black community, I probably fit in more, but not exactly.
Yeah.
So I've always just kind of like, even the whole thing of how you speak has always been a trip to me. I probably speak a blend of my mother tongue and just the diverse cultures that I spent time around.
That's so interesting too, because people within a certain community tend to base their community or their conception of who fits in that community based on phenotypes and how people look. And it's like, it's not, and I try to teach my students this too, that it's not about how a particular person looks, but it's what do you identify with. And if you identify with things that are the same in this culture, then you're of that culture, like food or language or shared history or whatnot.
Or
skateboard, whatever it is.
I say that because in junior high, I was into skating and I hung out with a lot of Asian kids, white kids, and I caught flack for it. It was like, why, aren't you black?
Yeah.
It was like, I like to skate, and
but like,
these are the kids that skate.
That's not what you're supposed to do.
Right. These are the kids that skate, so I skate. This is what I'm doing. And then when I got into high school, it was like, I started loving black women.
I love how you're super shy about that. Your wife is on, so shout out to her, because she's an amazing woman.
Absolutely.
Amazing,
so I was like, how do I, like, what do black people do? I'm going to join the basketball team, So I tried that, and that was a whole cultural experience of like, you as a young person, I guess it was like, how do I shape into these different interests that I have? And then I got into hip hop, and I would do hip hop dance. So then I was like, that was really where I could, like, basketball was cool, but I wasn't very good. But hip hop, dance, I grew up around dance. I don't know, it just grew on me.
That was just in your blood.
Yeah.
We have some comments, so let's go through these. Someone said, "Who are your role models?" It's 12:10 here in UK. May kind Allah bless you, brother. Christina said, wow, Japanese, Buddhist, and Black American Islam. What a mix.
Yep. And my grandmother was a Methodist Christian, Japanese.
Wow.
So, you know, that diversity was a major part of my house and my life, my upbringing.
Did you have, to answer this question, did you have any role models at that time that sort of helped you figure out, just with figuring your identity out?
I mean, I had my Uncle Bob. He was a, you know, Japanese American, you know, we're third generation Japanese, fourth generation. So I had like, my mom had people around who were pretty inspirational, you know. I mean, my mom, for one, she's probably like my first and foremost role model, because I would always see her doing like amazing things, like putting on these amazing productions and like talking about like internment camp experiences through art, you know, writing songs. I would see her writing songs all the time. She'd sit at the piano and like come up with these songs.
And she still to this day does that.
She still does this to this day. And she works with people based on art, and she uses art as a medium to talk about what's important to her. Like she did this one piece, it's called Sacred Moon Songs. It was post 9/11, where I was part of her. She would pull me into the productions. So as a child, when breakdancing was big, she would like she would put breakdancing, and so I'd do breakdancing. Or when I got into tasawwuf and you know, became, quote, a Sufi, she's like, why don't we, you know, what is this whole 9/11 and how do we figure out how to talk about stories and migration and identity? So I had this conversation with a Buddhist monk. We would just talk about Buddhism and Sufi teachings, Islamic teachings, and we came up with a skit where we're like talking on stage about, you know, looking at each other. We're crossing paths when we meet each other.
Okay.
And then we just start talking about identity, and I'm like, yeah, my mother's from Kurume, you know, from this, my family's from Japan. He's like, what, from Japan? What are you talking about? And you know, he was a Japanese Buddhist monk. So, and then we showed like the Buddhist meditation and the salat together, transposed, the sajda of the Buddhists and the sajda of the Muslim, you know.
That's so interesting.
Transposed,
That's the thing that amazes me. Go ahead.
And then we talked about like bodhisattvas, which are like the enlightened beings of Buddhism. These are enlightened figures like awliya, like saints of Buddhism, bodhisattvas, and the awliya, the saints of the Muslim tradition. Things like this.
That's what amazes me, is that traditions that come with like from a spiritual background have so many similarities. It's just a different expression.
Absolutely.
Or a different flavor, if you will.
Absolutely.
Christina said, oh my God, that's so cool. Someone said, how did you become Sufi, brother? What made you think that?
So when I went up to college and you know, I was 17 years old when I went to San Francisco State, and I didn't have a religion. My mother didn't bring me up with a particular religion, except for when you everyone has a spirit within them, and when they die, it moves on. That was like the only teaching that I was like, yeah, I believe that as a child.
Yeah.
So when I got into the Bay Area, I was really exploring my identity. You know, as a 17-year-old, I'm like, what am I about? You know, because I have affiliation with Matulu Shakur and Tupac Shakur. He was in the Bay Area at that time, and I'm like, well, maybe I'm gonna hook up with them. And but I never really, my life kind of took a different turn.
We're talking about the 80s right now?
We're talking about the 90s, 91.
Okay.
So it's before Tupac, you know, really blew up big. But he was like, oh, am I gonna see him? You know, am I gonna connect with him? But my journey became more interior. I had kind of experiences as a freshman in college that really started to peel off the layers of identity, and I had kind of a crisis of emotion, of perception, but I had enough in me to keep going, not to be hospitalized, but it was like I was very distraught in my first year in college. So it put me on a quest of like trying to find comfort, trying to find what is going on with me. Why is my perception so uncomfortable?
Yeah.
And so that led to me thinking through things, exercising, trying to figure stuff out, a little bit of meditation, and then finally, a friend of mine, long distance friend, was on the phone. She's like, you don't have faith. Like, I had tried all these different avenues, but I never really thought about, like,
and she just
faith.
cut to the chase.
Yeah. It's like, you don't have faith. So that was like my first spiritual, like, conscious spiritual connection with Allah, with God, without any influence of a church or a mosque or any, like, I was in a dorm by myself.
Yeah, so like no institutionalized religion, or so to speak. It was just.
So that put me on a quest, and my first thing was like, God is good. That was like my first thing. I was like, wow, God is good. Oh my God. Yeah, I was telling everyone, God is good, God is good. And like, people were like,
did you know him at this time? No, this was later.
So, but then I had to figure out, like, okay, I was in this really deep, dark place before this awakening, and then, like, how do I stay there? So that became like the whole quest of, like, how do I stay in this elevated consciousness? That was like, became my obsession in my first or second year of, this is like my first year of college. And that led to the study of many teachings, Buddhism, yoga, Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings. He's a Vietnamese Buddhist. I had exposure to my mom's good friend who's a Kundalini yoga teacher. Okay. So we would do yoga. And it was all these, like, rich experiences. I had, like, Christ experiences outside of a church, just like, oh, Christ became part of my theology. I was like, I would talk to my ancestors and stuff, like, guide me on the way. I want to find the way. And really interesting. I mean, I never worshipped I didn't consider it worship. These were just spiritual figures that were, like, there. I was conscious. I was like, guide me. And then I ended up meeting a Muslim when I was about 18 and a half. And she had a book called Principles of Sufism. And it's by Khosrau, Risala of Khosrau. And I looked at the book and I was like, can I be a Sufi? Like, if I become Muslim, can I be a Sufi?
Like, this is what I want to be.
Had, like, Quran and Hadith and, like, saints talking about, like, all kinds of interesting things, like God consciousness and dependence on God. So I was like, I want to. She wasn't like Sufi per se, but she was like, I guess. I'm like,
just like, I guess you can be what you want to be.
Right.
Just take Shahada, brother, and then.
Right. So shortly after that, like, I got into the whole quest of Islam, and I didn't find the tasawwuf path right away, but I kind of took a tour of the Bay Area and saw, like, how different people practiced Islam. How did they practice it in East Oakland at this mosque? How did they practice it through the Worthing community? How did they practice it at the, where all the taxi drivers go and pray their prayers? So I would, like, just go to all Jamaat Tabligh. Just see what was up. And I started meeting Sufi sheikhs, teachers. Yeah. And I met Sidi Jamal Rifai from Jerusalem. He was like this noble figure, like, reflecting beauty of God, and I was like, wow, okay, that's the real stuff. And then I met my teacher, Sheikh Hisham. Before I took my bay'ah with him, like, I met him and I saw him. Yeah. And I was like, wow, these people are a trip. They're talking about love, and they're just, like, flowing. And I was like, okay.
I think that's what draws people towards that too, because on the one hand, like, you're seeking God, and you're trying to figure out what are the ritual aspects of faith, and, like, what are the tenets, and then you find this group that tells you all of those things are encompassed by loving God. Like, you do this, but you have this, like, just overpowering love and joy in that endeavor.
Yeah, and it's something to try and revive, because I felt like a lot of Muslims, they always were felt like the underdog. Like, going against the grain, and it's about the struggle and da-da-da-da. And okay, I respect the struggle, but at the same time, what about, like, there's a struggle to have joy, like, to just, like, embody joy in spite of whatever's happening. Yeah. And that was important, and that remains important for me to keep doing it, because there's so many things to worry about and burden our hearts and make us feel heavy.
Yeah. So what can we do to lighten it?
Exactly.
Let's look at some comments before we move to the next portion. Oh man, you guys are really active today. Thank you for telling that, Sister Stina. We shouldn't ask people if they've seen the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, though, right? It's because it takes away the blessing of seeing him.
If we've seen him, oh, that's an interesting topic.
And she said we act as reminders for one another.
Yeah. Another thing is, before I took my Shahada, I had experienced all of these other benefits from different teachings and things, meditation teachings. So I wrote a letter to Allah that, oh Allah, don't let me forget. I'm gonna take Shahada, but don't let me forget and put those other traditions that I learned. Don't let me forget those blessings and be I'm straight now. So what I found is I always look for the strand of what I learned before in the practice of Islam. I always try to say, oh, that's where meditation, that's where Buddhism is, that's where to find that in Islam over time.
And I think that helps with community too, because instead of ostracizing people or isolating ourselves, we create these bridges with people and say, okay, well, you might have this, you practice in this faith tradition, I practiced in this, but we both have some sort of meditation. So can we get together and do something together? Can we meditate together? Can we reflect together? Can we, whatever it is.
And that's that reflective, I love that word reflection, and I'm glad it's being used more and more because it's such a dynamic word. It's thinking about things. What do we actually reflect? Do we reflect depression sometimes, anxiety? Do we reflect beauty? Do we reflect interest? Do we reflect compassion? And to do that those are languages that speak between hearts. People feel when you have love. People feel when you have fear, and that creates community. That creates separation.
It's so interesting because I'm just saying, this said awesome conversation. Thank you. To reflect, your glasses are reflecting this light. And I'm thinking sometimes, when I think of reflection, I think of something that's just in my mind, but it's also reflecting off of what's in front of you.
Yes.
And the important part of reflection has to be not just thinking about something, but actually opening yourself to see something that's in front of you. Perhaps it's in front of you and you're not opening your eyes to see that thing. Absolutely.
That is so someone was talking about the vision, whether or not we should talk about seeing the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah. And it's okay, there's seeing in this dream state or something where you see a figure, and then there's seeing the Prophet in people, in each other. وَعَلَمُوا أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ, and know that in you is the messenger of Allah. There's knowing intellectually, but it's when you feel compassion, that's the mercy. That's the perception of, oh whoa, this person reflects this light from Rasulullah.
Yeah.
Which is a deep subject, but it's very important. Perceiving the harmony, perceiving the love that people have within them. That's witnessing. That's witnessing Allah. That's witnessing the messenger.
And I think the beautiful part of that too is that it forces you, not even forces you, but if we think that way, it makes us become people who naturally always give people the benefit of the doubt, or are always looking for that goodness within someone.
Yes.
And if you're always looking for that goodness within someone, it's so much easier to deal with people. I think part of life's struggle is we get frustrated with people, we get frustrated with situations.
Yes.
We get frustrated because we think we've been wronged.
Oh yeah. There's plenty of that. And it's coming our way through social media. It's coming our way constantly. This sense of opposition and hatred and division. And it's valid to feel upset on a certain level, but then what?
And what do you do with it?
What do I do with it? Some people do things directly with that. I guess in a way for me, the whole thing about healing for me was being in a state of aha with Allah, the creation is everywhere. Everyone walking around is this reflection.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if it's bending down, making the ego tune down, so you just see oh, there's presence, And what effect does that have on each other?
Yeah.
You know?
And on one's heart.
On one's heart.
We've got, what is your life's motto? And Christina said, yes, Tazeen, I love that concept of reflection.
Love and respect is life's motto. That's what my teacher reflected to me. When I knew that he was my teacher, there was an unspoken love and respect that brought out the best. And so in me, in a flash, that I would have to catch up with throughout the rest of my life. But it was like, psh. So that love and respect is the model to keep coming back to. If I get down, if I feel I'm going through something difficult, if I'm having family problems, you know, come back to love, come back to respect. It's a quest, because there's times when I may not be even respecting my own being. I may not be loving my own being. So like, that might be a daily thing, because it's society or whatever, that the duality is telling you all the time, you know, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. And so there's a story that people make up around these forms.
Yeah.
So how do I recognize the form but live also outside of it to witness the possibility?
Yeah.
And the meaning.
So that you're not limited to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things that you, as part of who you are, is you're a spiritual chaplain.
Yep, I'm a chaplain in a hospital.
At in Ann Arbor.
University of Michigan Hospital.
So what are one of the things that you, or what are some of the things that you do with patients in terms, I'm sure like with meditation or whatever it must be within that spiritual care, that I guess gets people to expand and to feel better? Yeah.
So for one, it's like the daily practice of, and everyone's different, but I found for me it's like, okay, I wrote this quote today, like, let's learn how to be dressed with the beautiful names and attributes every morning. Let's learn to get dressed with the beautiful names and attributes every morning.
So I like how you lifted.
Yeah, it's like,
as you did that, yeah.
You know, how do I rise up into that through dhikr, through meditation, to see my own stuff, to see my own biases, to see my own access to grind, so to speak. Am I going to take that into a patient's room? Am I going to take that in among nurses and doctors?
Yeah.
Or am I going to bring a dress that came upon me and upon my heart of compassion, love, beauty, and just like go witness that with people? So that's one aspect of it. And it can sometimes, I mean, that's mujahada to me. That's straight like struggle. Like,
I'm sure.
It's like, I want to be mad. No.
Because you might be feeling something.
Sure. Or you see situations where people are going through stuff and you're like, how do I address this and balance the situation? You know, how do we bring balance to a situation?
I think that's the tough part too, is when you're working at the hospital, I'm working at a college, you see stories of people who are really just in situations that are unjust, or situations that they shouldn't be in, or you think that they shouldn't be, you hope that no one would be in that. And so you don't have control over it.
Yeah.
So it's not that you're upset with a person, it's you're upset with a system, you're upset with something greater.
Right.
And managing those emotions and still embodying love and still embodying joy and still embodying hope, I think that is also difficult.
Yeah.
That's a struggle.
So there's this thing that they talked about when I started learning about chaplaincy. They call it theological reflection. And I was like, what is that? What is theological reflection? Because, you know, it's a different language. It's kind of this, chaplaincy has its own language. But I had to kind of like find, what does this mean to like, for me, it was like reflecting on the beautiful names and attributes. So it's like, when you go into a situation and you see an imbalance, how do you perceive where reality is calling you? So it's like that lens of looking at the whole. Like, there's an imbalance, there's tension, for example, right? You go and there's like tension in a room.
Yeah.
And so you go and you bear witness to, what is that tension saying? What's the story behind that? What's fueling that tension? And then you bear witness on it. You like make shahada on it. You're like, okay.
Like, I see this.
Right, I'm witnessing this, right? And how do I honor what's being called forth here?
So how do you?
So a person, so you listen to that heart of the person who's in pain. You try and listen and just like listen for that spark of resilience. Listen for that light and wisdom that might be beneath what's ailing this person. Try and search for that. Let that come to the surface. So it's like you're witnessing layers coming off.
Yeah.
The person's peeling off their layers. Honoring their story. Like, what's the story of this person? A person is behaving a certain way. Why? Why?
Yeah.
Is it just about the people around them? Sometimes that's a catalyst to bring it out, but maybe there's more that person's trying to discover. So that's part of it.
What are some of the tools that you use to help them feel relief from that pain that they may be feeling?
It has a lot to do with listening and being present. Like you were talking about the heart earlier, like being present in the heart. You know, zikr, like as Sufis, like it's like Allah says do a lot, or as Muslims, Allah says do a lot of zikr, do a lot, excessive. Why?
Remembrance for anyone.
Remembrance, because if my cup is dry and someone puts something in there, it starts mixing with all kinds of stuff. So like I get burdened more. There needs to be some overflow of awareness so that those things can just start to filter off. It's almost the image of like everyone has this wellspring inside of them, and you're just like helping get the water to flow so that the water becomes clear. If I can do that with another person, then it's healing.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit then about, Christina said, a return to nature. Can you please lead Fajr hikes this summer? We should do that.
Yeah.
We should do that. Because I think Beacon used to do that. What are, well, I guess this sort of leads into that next portion. So we're talking about today art, identity, and spirituality, and meditation as sort of part and parcel of all of those things.
Yeah.
So how can meditation help? I mean, you're talking about dhikr, you're talking about remembrance. How can meditation in general, whatever faith tradition a person may be following, and if you're not, help sort of get that water to flow and get that water to move within you?
Yeah. So meditation is this like amazing broad topic, right? And that's how I usually present it when I'm talking to people about meditation in the hospital, parents and staff. So it's a broad topic. Our whole being, right? We're made of this physical being. When we breathe in and out, there's all these exchange of like energy and gases and things going on. Like we're letting out carbon dioxide, we're bringing in oxygen, right? Our bloodstream is there. The light of our awareness is there. Like our consciousness is there. Our intention is there, right? Whether we're aware of it or not, we may be saying, "Oh, I'm gonna have a bad day today," and just accept it. Like, or we could say, "Well, what's the wisdom of this feeling, and how can I get opportunity out of this feeling?" Like you were sharing about your
opportunity,
your class, right?
I was telling him earlier, I had a situation come up in class where some students, I teach Arabic, so some students were a little bit upset. I was playing music from Sudan, and they were questioning what it meant to be Arab and from which region of the world can you be from if you're considered Arab. And it sparked a discussion, and it really got me heated. I was like, in the moment, it happened last week, and he could tell you I was really upset by it, but really, but it was an opportunity to come up with a month-long exploration and a project for us to work together as a class to answer those questions of what is making you so upset. In that situation, it had to do with identity. But, you know, what is making you so upset that's saying that I'm from this group and these people are not? You know, what is that in you that wants to separate from this other person? And what is it in that person that's making you feel so defensive about who you are and what your group is about?
Or what group?
or what group is not a part of your group.
Yeah. So meditation, a lot of it is like paying attention, right? You have pain, you pay attention to it. Yeah, it's like, okay, I have some sensation going on here. Pay attention to it. What's in there? What's the content? You know, can I write this out? You know, what was your process to start to just like, let's put a magnifying glass on this.
Yeah.
And let it like bring out, you know, bring out opportunity.
Yeah.
So meditation is similar, is that when we're paying attention to our inner being, we're turning the light of our awareness inward, toward the breath, toward the consciousness of the breath moving through the body, toward the heart. And then the heart itself, and in the way that I share it, the heart itself is like, it's like the way it's been shared with me and the way that I share it, it's billions of times stronger than the rational. It has so much energy, so much light, so much information, is actually physically, energetically, and spiritually
Stronger.
coming through the heart.
Wow.
So if you pay attention to that, you're trying to like build literacy about the reality of the heart.
And I think that's important because I think people tend to have this gripe with being emotional versus being rational.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting because if you look at the heart as the strongest organ and stronger than the rational mind or the brain, so to speak, then that means that this organ, you have to learn how to use it. You have to learn what those feelings mean, what that energy means. And I think that sometimes we can be clouded. We might think that we feel a certain way, but it's clouded in something else. And I think it's it must be a science and an art to really be able to know yourself and to reflect and to really understand, why do I feel this? Where is this coming from, and what can I do with it?
Yeah. So, you know, traditionally, is the heart and the mind really separate? People try and make that, and there's volumes about like the heart and the mind and so forth, but very basically, it's like, you know, what do we have in our hearts? What draws us to people? What draws us to ideas and people and situations? You know, and what draws us to certain states of being? Are we paying attention to that? What's on our conscience? Because there's the organ, and then there's the spiritual reality behind what that organ represents. Like there's the Kaaba in Mecca. There's the house of, you know, they say the house of God, but you don't open it and see like, oh, hi God. You know, it's a symbol of a reality of this circle, and what does this thing represent? That circumambulation of this reality, just like your heart, is the central point that the bloodstream is moving in and moving out. So, and then the sun is the same way, and this black hole is the same way. And I say black hole, I like to say it with a W-H-O-L-E, black hole. With the hole.
Tell us the science behind that. We were talking about this a couple nights ago, and I was like, oh.
So some scientists, you know, they reflect on how, well, actually I've heard from Sheikh Nazim, which is one of our teachers, that these physicists came to him and they're asking him about a black hole. He's like, which one? He's like, every atom has a black hole. Every atom has a black hole. So.
And they were like, wait a second.
Yeah. And he was just smiling. So spirituality and science, like reflecting on creation, right? When we meditate on creation. We meditate on the reality of the heart. We meditate on the bloodstream and the consciousness and all these things.
Yeah.
So there's this vortex that is supposedly pulling things in, but there's also radiance that's coming out from it. So it's not just disappearing. Like energy is only just disappearing into the black hole. Like everyone's afraid to go in.
Yeah.
There's actually like this emanation coming out. So there's information coming into the heart, and there's information radiating out of the heart. And what is the level of consciousness? If we're thinking of love and compassion and beauty, that we're meditating on that attribute of light in the heart, then what is our surrounding what's the feedback loop? What's being reflected out, and how do we take in, and are we paying attention? So the whole, meaning, it's like, you could say it's like the unseen reality of what you see. If your perception and light of your heart is on, then how are you going to see life? How are you going to see people?
Sit back and marinate on that a little bit. How are you going to see people?
Like babies. How are you going to see people? That's a good question. You know, how do we choose to see people? Is it a rational exercise? Sometimes. Sometimes it's a rational exercise. Look at that white person. Look at that black person. Look at that Asian person. And so we'll think about all the details of, you know, what we know in our mind and our ego even. What story did we make up about these people? But then it's like, if you look closer and you look into yourself, or just take it back into yourself, how do I perceive myself? How do I perceive myself?
Which I think should be the first question. How do I perceive myself? And that will probably naturally change how you perceive other people.
Yeah. Am I looking for fault in other people? Why? Because I feel faulty. I'm cracked, I'm broken. So I see faults everywhere. Fault lines. Oh, earthquake coming. Because I'm broken.
Just dropping gems here.
But that's the beauty of meditation. If you see yourself as whole, as like ascending into the light of divine beauty and reality, like if you can conceive of yourself that through your breath, which in fact, in a sense, you are, even physically, right? This universe is moving light speed. This galaxy is moving light speed toward a destination.
Yeah.
There's all this powerful energy and beauty being created. But do I give myself and my family opportunity to like tune into that? And musicians do it, poets do it, you know, scientists do it when they get into this state of like connection.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, so you might perceive yourself as an unfolding star for like 5 minutes without even having to see it. It's just like you just connect with the reality that like I am a black hole, so that's a whole nother piece of identity.
Yeah.
Like when people say I'm black, is that defined by like white supremacists, or is that defined by the universe and cosmos? Is that like my identity as a black hole, emanating different colors and cultures and beauty?
This is my cat.
So
That's
it's exciting.
Yeah, she's like, what? I want to be a part of this too. Let's take a couple of comments before we move on. Sit back and marinate. If your heart is not illuminated, how are you to see? Look at this guy. Mashallah, brother. Do you have a YouTube channel, brother?
Kamau Ayubbi, Kamau Ayubbi. I don't put a whole bunch of stuff, but maybe there are meditations on there, and there's some talks on there and stuff that I've given.
I'll link that too on this post so that you can look at those for meditations. Because you're shadowed, because the light is bent, you cannot truly see your real shape. Oh my God. Christina right now is having these, like, she must be screaming in Jakarta. Tell me I'm wrong, Christina.
We're already at 45 minutes. Wow. That's awesome.
Well, since you were talking about meditations guided meditations that you put on your YouTube channel, what meditation, guided meditation or otherwise, examples of things that people can tangibly use to be reflective? Because I think sometimes, like, we look at this and it's really overwhelming. Like,
Sure.
How do I look at myself? How do I question myself? How do I figure these things out?
Yes. So inside of us, there's this perception that, wow, this makes sense, like knowledge of the self and awareness of the self and so forth. And but sometimes when you sit by yourself, you're sitting there, you're like, well, what am I doing? You know, like, am I meditating or not? And I mean, it's a process. There are many different techniques of different traditions, right? Like you have Buddhist meditation, which is like might be just observing the breath going in and out, and like yoga, which is moving the body, which is breathing in and breathing out with movement. You have Tai Chi, which is like the movement of the body with intentional, like it combines intention, movement, and awareness, right? So like Salat already like has you covered, really. It's like people just think, oh, it's my prayers, I gotta do my prayers. He made me do 5 prayers, and it's like this concept of, oh,
like I have to do this.
So for me, coming from a meditative like background before I became Muslim, I was like, man, I get to meditate 5 times a day. Yay!
You're like, this is the one for me. Like.
Right. So it's this approach of, yeah, I want to burn in the divine light. Salat, yeah. You know, let's go to the burning bush 5 times a day. or let's dip in the Kawthar when we, okay, I'm seeing myself in the Kawthar and drinking, you know.
Yeah.
The physical senses don't know it, but we're reading these surahs, Inna A'tainaka Kawthar, like we provided you the fountain of abundance. So it's like that fountain of abundance, the Prophet ﷺ gave description of what that is. It's like it has pearls on the shore, and it's like sweeter than milk, cooler than ice, and just like, okay, so that gives us a reminder of something that we love. And each one has their own flavor, the way they taste it. First is to think about, okay, there's the form, and then there's like the meaning. So when you're breathing, when you're moving, when you're doing your salat, and in fact, it's up to you. How present do you want to be? I mean, it's up to Allah, but like it's a mirror, right? It's a mirror. Like, do I smile into the mirror? Do I frown into the mirror? Do I surrender my burdens to the mirror? So when you're breathing, yeah, the mirror, it's like when I look in the mirror in the morning, am I like,
yeah,
or am I like, Allah? You know,
like excitement, just
woo-hoo! You know, but that's something inside. Are we trained and conditioned to like develop this sense that dhikr will automatically lead, but am I reflecting on what I'm remembering? Do I feel worthy to be a receptacle of compassion?
Wow.
Right? So what does that sound like? What does that feel like? What does that taste like? What does it smell like?
Am I worthy to be a receptacle of compassion? And I think the breath can remind you of that. Yes. The fact that you take in new breath every single second or so.
So when you breathe out, it's like the angels are just pulling away burdens. When you breathe in,
new fresh
into the windpipe, into the lungs, the heart, like the lungs are like radiating out this, you know, energy out into the bloodstream. You feel that iron in the body taking the radiance and moving towards the heart, and the heart's like, yes, like it's taking it in, and it's like combining with your intention of love and compassion. You're like, right. And so, and then the heart is first, it's like feeding itself, right? Like the heart itself, it takes that oxygen and it nurtures itself and combines with it. Then it radiates out to every pathway of the body, right? Just to acknowledge that through the heart, going out through the cells, you know, and the cells are in communication. So to appreciate that compassion, that mercy, that love, and then it's like, and that in itself is gonna guide you to something, because mercy doesn't just, it bathes you, but then it's like it washes you, then it's like preparing you to go into another aspect of healing.
Just a couple of seconds of focusing on breathing and I already feel lighter. I just feel just lighter. And it's your insides just feel so good when you focus on the breath. Because you're like, oh man, this oxygen feels so good.
Right.
Yeah.
So the light of awareness, light in itself, light upon light, right? It's light upon light. Like, what is light upon light? You know, that light of awareness. What's our capacity to meditate on light? What's our capacity? We are light, right? I mean, if you believe in science, no. No, but it's spirit. Right? Allah is Nur, and Muhammad and Nur, which is a subject in itself. It's one of my favorite subjects. But that light is like our basis, and our remembrance can bring us back to a state of light, and all information is transmitted through light, right? This screen there's light frequencies moving. What about the heart? What about the limbs? What about the hands?
Were this concept of us being made of light, is this similar to Buddhist traditions as well?
Well, the Buddhists that I grew up around, the minister, it's called Pure Land Buddhism, and it's very kind of atheist. So this just kind of like, they're more focused on the nothingness aspect of it, like that all this is actually nothing. So they're trying to like just keep stripping it away. But I feel like Islam gives you like La ilaha illallah. So there's the denial and negation, there's the void, and then there's the fullness. And Buddhism will probably talk about it too. But so it's like the breath in is, the breath out is emptying out, right? The breath in is illallah. So, you know, that's the engagement of the breath and the light.
Said, our remembrance brings us back to a state of light, quote, powerful. Yes. Unitarians, Christina says, Unitarians believe our souls are light and energy. Interesting.
Yeah,
That's
family. Yeah, everything is light. Everything is light.
Which makes reflection make sense then.
So you, Christina, you are form, then you are meaning, and then within that meaning, these lights come out of awareness that help that meaning unfold. Or that every person's like that. I'm a form, right? I'm black, I'm Japanese, I'm this, I'm that. Then, but is there a meaning in that? Like, then is there a light in the midst of that? You know? Or is it just purely materialistic, like, blah?
I like that you say unfold, because if you think of stars, I feel like stars are constantly unfolding and moving.
Yes.
And if we ourselves are also unfolding, it's like this form is on a journey, but it's the vehicle that's taking what's within us on this journey. So we're constantly unfolding our story and the different layers of our story.
That's right.
And at the same time, part of it is, you know, you don't have control, but part of it is you are creating at the same time. You're creating a story while the part of your story that you don't control is unfolding, like at the same time. That's
the intimacy. That's the immanence. That's the intimacy. It's like creation is happening.
Every moment.
Yeah. And most of the time, I'm like, I gotta get up for work again. I'm gonna see these people. I just create a story that's like,
you created a story.
Right.
Every
I
morning.
participated in that creation. I am as my servant thinks of me. So it's like, and it's the emotion behind it. These freaking racists, I gotta face them. That's how I feel sometimes, you know? Blah, da, 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 da. That society, the stories are just piled on like cake. Like, not tasty cake. I want tasty cake. I want chocolate.
You want Matilda's
mousse.
chocolate cake.
I want carrot cake with vitamin A, nutrients like bursting out of the cake, energy.
You want a banana.
Like,
that's what you want.
Want cake. Here's some cake, babe. Have some cake, Malika. Tasty cake, fried chicken and cake.
Oh, what a combination. Man, I need more marination, I gotta think.
Yeah.
What are the similarities between Islam and other traditions, religions, beliefs, in kind of a Captain Planet way, with our godlike, with our powers combined or energy light, we make godlike communities.
Woo-hoo. So like, constellation, right? It's like constellations, what makes the universe. There's stars. There's the black hole with a W unfolding, but then there's these stars that are the forms, right? Planets are the forms that emanated out of the void of creation and light. So like in reality, it's the religions like are like these crystallizations of man-made ideas, but when you connect, that's what I think was unique about the saints and the awliya, like Rumi, for example. Why is he speaking to the hearts of people 1400 or 11 since 1100?
Of all people.
Right, of all people. So there's something behind his words. It's not just like his words. There's life behind it. So Christ, Buddha, Moses, Muhammad, peace be upon them all, is like we read them as stories rather than realities. These are like living realities, right? So when the prophet made Miraj, he's seeing all these prophets, he's seeing all these heavens, they're realities, but we treat them as stories of the past, figments of imagination, or figments of something stagnant in the past, when they're like present realities, and we fall in and out of sleep with that.
Yeah.
You know, we fall in and out of touch with that.
I mean, we've got a couple of minutes. Yeah. That relates a lot to poetry and music and art and expression, because whoever the poet is or the artist is, so if you think of Rumi as this amazing artist, creates something, and that thing now has a life even beyond him. It has his light in it. Yes. But it now has manifested and has its own light and life.
Yes.
And then that life affects anyone who comes into contact with it. So as an artist, it's really amazing to think that you can create and that thing can manifest and take a different form and can... I know.
It's time to wrap it up.
No, it'll tell us. We got people in the background disrupting us.
He's wearing a mud flap. So,
here's what's going to happen. We have 2 more minutes, so you can share anything like last-minute thoughts. And then I'm going to close this out, and you guys know we'll be right back within 10 seconds on the second portion. Will be you sharing some pieces and some things with us.
Okay.
So any last-minute thoughts on all of these things we've been talking about?
Oh, me?
Yeah. What are some things that you'd like to share with us?
I mean,
or some pieces or reflection or meditation or whatever type of expression that you'd like to share. Oh, look at all these realist supporters coming back. Thank you, guys. Welcome back. We get logged off after an hour, but as you guys know, those of you who have been on the show before, we're every Tuesday, and the second portion is when the guest gets to share with us their expression.
All right. I dedicate this song we got a drum here.
You should move it back.
So, my father was a drummer, conga drummer, and I took some conga classes, but I don't drum that much, but Joe, who is part of Divine Providence, just made mention of, he just thought it was cool that what's the brother's name that we were violin? Aaron and I were jamming, and I'm not here to perform or anything, but just to express, it's like intention, movement, sound, right? The drum there's reflection in everything. So there's meditation in everything. It may be partially the drum that you just have an intention. So we can play something.
He's still going on.
You should start some poetry.
Hmm?
You should start some poetry.
Some poetry. Oh, so
Should put you on the spot.
we could do some kind of
I
freestyle.
listened to a couple of things. Very relaxing, very introspective.
Thank you. So, just some words. Bismillah. Breathing in, breathing out. Universes and stars, producing, reflecting, moving through time and space. Every moment a meditation, widening the perceptions through the contractions. Divine love, heavenly satisfactions, descending upon your bloodstream. You annihilate into the light. You come back, ready to unite. Take your mind, insert it into the heart. The awareness begins, it starts. Be happy with what you're given. Infinitude in what you're living. So these are some words to share reflection that you will sustain divine connection.
Oh!
Meditation.
Thank you so much
You're welcome.
for being here.
Yeah,
I truly appreciate it.
absolutely.
I think that it's been a really great conversation and we've learned a lot. And we have dug deeper, I think.
Yay.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I really appreciate you. I appreciate you and Ismail and Divine Providence and all the people that you are in contact with. I'm happy to just be also in this exchange, this life. Mahogany, the other sister that was talking about Rumi last week,
Berhinda.
Mike Munford, what's her name?
Berhinda.
Mike Munford. You know, let's just continue and build on the beautiful names. What do we wake up in the morning, get dressed in the beautiful names and attributes. And when we go to sleep, we may feel happy or blissful, we may feel burdened. Give it back to the ocean of we go back to that ocean, surrender that ocean together. I hope we'll be happy. And that the burdens will be lightened on humanity. And that these coming days that come, there may be heaviness there, but what is the opportunity? What's the opportunity that's embedded in our lives and the extremes that happen in the world? There's something to be extracted. And maybe a lot of the big unwrapping of the gift is as a chaplain, we see people leaving this earth. It's a big unveiling, but why wait? You know, search now. Start unwrapping now. It's infinite unwrapping. So
always unwrapping, always
unfolding.
It's like unwrapping this present.
Yep.
But it's constant.
Yep.
It's constant presence.
Yes.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, this was Kamau Ayubbi. You can find him, some of his meditations and whatnot online, so I will post that.
And we'll continue. We're going to continue making more meditations, hopefully, with Ismail and other artists, and just promote reflection, reflective culture.
Yeah.
You know, if this country, if this land has a medicine, I think it's reflection. I think because reflection is infinite.
I think so too.
And then it's growing among other people. Maybe it's not growing. What are you going to do?
But I mean, we can continue it for ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing wrong with that. And you can find him on Lufuki and Divine Providence, our album that's coming up. He did the poetry that's on it. You did such a beautiful job really embodying the meanings of the songs. So I'm really excited to share that because they're really beautiful.
Thank you.
With that was another successful episode, alhamdulillah, of Digging Deeper every Tuesdays at 7 p.m. I will see you guys next Tuesday, 7 p.m. on the dot. We have another really great topic or another really great person who's going to be coming in from Flint. So I'm really excited. So that should be good. But anyhow, yeah, share this with your friends. It will be up on my website, diggingdeeper.org. There's a dash between Digging Deeper. I'll post all the information on my Instagram and on the Facebook post. And yeah, so I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Take care and peace, joy, happiness.